Hello, hello, hello,
So
everyone.
if you want to sit on the carpet, you can.
Thank you so much for being here today. We're waiting for
Give
a
me a
few more
second.
people to join.
Stop.
Hello, hello. Thank you for those of you that are muted. We really appreciate you. There will be time for you to unmute, I promise, and ask questions and any comments that you have for the chef. But for right now, let's start off muted. That would be fantastic. Appreciate you. How is everyone today? Give me a thumbs up if you're doing good. All right, we can see only a couple of classes right now. For those that have the screens on, really appreciate you. Thank you. I know it's not easy to turn that all around and get that set up, so thanks. So happy National STEM Day to everybody. Oh, there's some more kiddos popping up. Fantastic. My name is Miss Michelle, and I work for a company called the Dot Consulting, and we are lucky enough to bring really cool things to you on days like today, National STEM Day. And the person that I want to introduce you to right now is Chef Lady Wren. She is our guest speaker at the moment. Oh, we've got a couple people trying to come in. Sorry. And she has some really, really cool things that she's going to show you to do today. So I'm going to let her kind of take over. There we go. Last person is in. All right, go ahead. Chef Lady Wren, how are you?
I'm doing well. Hello, everybody, and happy National STEM Day. Yay. Thanks for having me here and spending this time with me. I am Chef Renate, and my business is Lady Wren's Bakery and Books, and I love to eat, but I have to make sure that the ingredients are all great for my body. So that's my specialty, wellness, but enjoying food. And in honor of National STEM Day, we are going to look at how fractions in baking recipes and cake chemistry unite with each other. So we're going to make a cinnamon ginger apple mug cake, something that's very simple, can be made in the microwave, and it doesn't take much time. And since it's fall, another favorite of time of this year for me, I figure we can do something that relates to the fall flavors. So vote and let me know what's your favorite fall fruit. Do you like apples? What do you like? Pears? So let me know. So at the end, we can all say, hey, this is what we like, or who likes what and who doesn't like what. And if you have
Go ahead. You guys can, I'm sorry for interrupting. Uh-oh, I don't know why that keeps doing that. If you can put it in the chat box, teachers, some of the answers that kids are putting out there. My favorite, Chef Lady Wren, is a sweet potato. If you're
Okay.
curious, what's your favorite fall flavor?
Apples, and I love pumpkin pie. So, ooh, yes, those are my thing, but anything apples. So I've just been baking away with everything apples.
Love it, love it, love it. I do see some apples coming up. I see pumpkin showing
Oh,
up
I
in
see
the chat.
pumpkin. Yes, yes.
Yes.
Awesome, awesome. So
Good.
before we get into the fun part, what I like to teach is the art of cooking and baking. And the secret to making it fun, rather than some people say they hear cooking, baking recipe, they get, oh, no, that's not for me. That's too much. But here is the reason. If you use the right method, strategy, then it becomes easy. So the first thing you do when you are preparing a recipe is you read a recipe from top to bottom so that you're familiar with everything before starting. Because most people, what they do is they just skim through and then they keep running back and forth to grab the ingredients. So the first thing to do to avoid errors is you read a recipe, and again, you're training your brain. You know what you need. Then the next thing you do is gather all of your ingredients, which is what I'm going to show you. When you gather your ingredients, then the next thing is you follow the preparations of how we're going to combine the different ingredients. And once we have those set up, we move on to putting it all together to enjoy the final result, which is your food. So those are the steps we're going to go through today. However, I would like to let you know a little bit about the baking in the mix of science and art, because fractions what we use in baking to precisely measure ingredients. With cooking, there is room for a little bit of error, but with baking, there is none. It has to be precise. For example, if you're baking and you need baking powder and you need milk, you have to have the exact measurement because it will create a reaction, a chemical reaction that will allow your cake to rise and be light and fluffy. If it's not measured correctly, you will have a very dense, hard cake that you will not enjoy. And that's why it's important to measure. And that's why I love fractions and I love math, and it comes in handy with baking and cooking. So when we using the correct fraction, we ensure the right balance of the moisture, which is from the milk, and that will make the cake perfectly fluffy when it's finished cooking. So if you were to use too much or too little, that is called imprecise measurement. And the cake might not turn out the way you would like it, and therefore you wouldn't have a delicious end result. So common fractions that we use in measuring cups, I'm going to share some examples with you. They help you measure precisely so that your cake will turn out excellent. And one of the most used ones is a quarter of a cup. And a quarter of a cup is often used for both wet or dry ingredients. So you could be using this for, like we will be using this to measure our milk. Let's say we are making pancakes or in our recipe, and it calls for a quarter of a cup of milk, then this is what we will measure it with. Now listen, let's say we did not have a quarter cup, this is how we can use measuring spoons, because this is a tablespoon. So you would need 4 tablespoons equals a quarter cup. So do you see how we can move these over to still have the ingredient measurement we need? So we would have to, however, we would have to measure 4 tablespoons of milk. So 1, 2, 3, 4 to equal a quarter of a cup. And that's how you can go back and forth with fractions in baking with your tools. And if you have a half a cup, that's handy as well for measuring flour or chocolate chips or anything like that. Now let's say that, and this is what your half a cup would look like. That's what we will be using today for our apples. We need a half a cup of apples. So those are the benefits of when you have the conversion of fractions with the measuring cups and the measuring spoons. For now, we will talk a little bit about the measuring spoon. Let's say you need a 3/4 of a teaspoon of vanilla extract, but there is no 3/4 of a teaspoon, because in all of the measurements and the utensils I have, I'm yet to find a 3/4 of a teaspoon. But guess what? A 1/4 of a teaspoon 3 times equals 3/4 of a teaspoon. So we would take the vanilla and 1, 2, 3. We still have 3/4 measurements. And these are the great things about math and science and technology is if you don't have all the tools, you can still make what you need to make or measure, because they also transfer into, let's say you're measuring with a ruler. And so if you keep working in that, you will see how easily fractions become something that you can do with the tip of your fingertips, because eventually you start to see it. You're training your brain. So that was my little bit about how important fractions, the role they play, and the chemistry in our baking. So anybody have any questions so far?
That was perfect for the 3rd graders and above. You guys are studying fractions and math if you haven't already. So for the little guys, you'll get to what fractions are coming up here someday. But 3rd, 4th, 5th and above, this is why fractions are important. This is why they're taught, because you want to be able to make some delicious bakes or baked goods and some meals, and you're going to use them all the time when you cook.
Exactly.
There actually is a question. Miss Madden's class wants to know, how can you become a chef? How did you tell us your story real quick?
Yeah, I'll tell you my story. So, how you become a chef is starting right in the kitchen. When I was very little, my mom always had my brother and I in the kitchen with her, and that's how we learned to cook. And my mom is a really great cook. She never cooked with recipes; she was just put things together. But that's where I learned and I developed the love for cooking. It's being in the kitchen with her. But what I didn't realize at that young age is my mom, when she was younger, she was a pharmacist, but what she was teaching us was fractions and math, because those were the things she would say to us. She'll go, I need 2 tablespoons of this, or I'll do that. And so she taught us how to average. And this is why my brother and I, we love numbers. We're math people. My brother is a scientist. And that's how the love developed for me. How I became a chef is I moved to North Carolina from New York, and I had a total change of career. And when I couldn't find a job that I loved, I tapped into my skills of baking and cooking. And people learn about it. They get to enjoy the type of foods I make, the quality, and the taste, because it's completely different from the store-bought products. And eventually, I just received the customers. Then the WBTV heard about me, and they asked me to be one of their monthly chefs. And that's how I turned into Lady Wrens with the chef, and people would hire me to prepare dinners for them, or if they're celebrating any special occasion. But it was my everyday cooking that's how I became a chef. So I encourage you all, get into the kitchen. Don't be afraid. I'll teach you how to use a knife, and it's not fearful. But that's how you will develop the love. And do not think that cooking and baking is something I can't do. Yes, you can do it. So that's how I became a chef.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And guys, if you didn't hear her, she did say she is on TV, WBTV. You may catch her every once in a while with a cooking show. So tune in if you can.
If you're awake, I'll be on the 18th. So
what time? What time? What time are you on?
7:20, November 18th. I'll be doing something for Thanksgiving.
Ooh, yum. All right, very good. Last question before we get baking. What is your favorite thing to make as a chef?
Oh my goodness me. Well, I love to cook. So cooking, I love to make a lot of Asian food. So that's what I do. And my favorite thing to bake would be I love to make pies, especially pumpkin pies. So those are my favorite things to bake. And muffins, though, because it's very therapeutic, and I love those.
Yeah, everybody loves a good muffin. That was from Mr. Melton's class. And all right, and one more snuck in. So let me do this one real fast, because it kind of goes along with the last question. I'm going to butcher this name, but is it Ashiutu? I'm sorry. I'm terrible with names. I apologize right now. But they want to know, what is the hardest thing you've ever made?
Ooh, the hardest thing I've ever made, I would say, was trying to make these it's a type of cinnamon bun, but it's completely different than the ones you would get at Cinnabon. And because it's made like a twist, like a braid. And so that was kind of a little bit tricky for me to get the precision, but I mastered the skill. And so the end of it is, when you bake them, you put them in the muffin cup, and when it comes out, it's this beautiful braided bun. And then when you eat it, you have all the cinnamon in between. And if you want nuts, it's all in there. So it's like having a Cinnabon, but in a more elegant way. But that was the hardest thing for me.
That sounds delicious. That sounds delicious. All righty, let's go ahead. There are some questions that are going to pop up throughout, and we will answer those maybe while it's cooking, while it's baking, and then towards the end. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm getting hungry.
Okay, great. Me too. Me too. Although I love talking about food and I love speaking to kids and you know, encourage you to cook and bake and eat well. All right. So I will lower my screen so that you can follow along and see the same things that I spoke about earlier on how we prepare is what I'm going to walk you through. So I have everything on my counter space here. It's a small space. So I will lower my screen and this way you can follow along. So here it goes. Is that okay? Can you all see that?
Yep, that's perfect.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so over here I have all of my dry ingredients. I have the flour, I have the sugar, ginger, cinnamon, baking powder, and salt. So the reason why I have dry on one side and then I have the liquids, the wet on the other side is because we will go in formation. Following the recipe, the first thing we will do is measure out the cake batter ingredients. And for that, we would need flour, sugar, baking powder, cinnamon, ginger, some salt. And then we will measure the wet ingredients and set it aside. So this is how we will measure. Now, when you are measuring, let's say we have this. When you're measuring with a measuring cup, you don't want to do this because you do not get the accuracy of the flour. So this is why it's recommended that you always go like this. And these are baking techniques. And then you will level it off, and that would equal 1/4 of a cup. So I wanted to show you the importance of how to measure. It's tempting to just dip in because it seems easier and faster. But again, remember, we want precision. So our recipe calls for 5 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. So if anybody wants to just put in the chat and Miss Michelle will let me know, I would like to know how many tablespoons you think would equal to 1/4 of a cup. So, and you don't have to be exact. You can just share your thoughts and Michelle will let me know. But
You actually did mention this earlier, so was anybody paying attention? She definitely did. How many tablespoons equal 1/4? Anybody remember? Or anybody have any guesses?
Anybody have any guesses? So while I measure 5, I'm showing you how I'm measuring.
Oh, I love that she's leveling it off. I always just dip it in. And I always forget to level it off. I need to be more precise with my measurements, don't I?
Yes, it's important. That's
Yeah.
3.
Miss U6 class nailed it. They said 4.
Wonderful. Yay. So guess what? Now, the shorter way of doing this was, 4 equals 1/4 cup, and we needed 5. So you could have simply measured 1/4 cup and then 1. 4 and 1, 5. So it saves time. See that? So we have our 5 tablespoons of flour, and we need 2 tablespoons of sugar. So we're going to add the sugar. Now with the sugar, we can level it off just like this. And here is the thing. This is the good thing when you do your own baking and cooking, because let's say you want not a very sweet cake, then you can reduce the sugar like this, because I don't use a lot of sugar. So if a recipe says 2 tablespoons, mine is less than the tablespoon full. See that? So that's the beauty of when you do your own baking and cooking, you get to control what goes into your food. And you probably, so we're putting this all together because I will show you what it means when I say sift your flour and the baking powder to avoid any lumps. And now we need 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. What if we didn't have 1/2 teaspoon? How could we, what measuring spoon could we use to equal 1/2 teaspoon? Put it in the chat. What would equal 1/2?
Who knows their fractions out there? If I don't have 1/2 teaspoon, could I use something else?
That's right. We don't have 1/2. What can we use?
Think of equivalent fractions for you older kiddos.
We make sure there were no lumps. That's just
And
my.
yeah, what is that you didn't put it right into the bowl? You put it into something else.
Oh, this
Mm-hmm.
this was the dry ingredients. So we were sifting to make sure we have no lumps. And then we have this in the bowl now.
Oh.
Yeah, we're preparing our cake batter ingredients. So
Love it.
we sift to make sure there are no lumps. And then that's why I said, okay, there were no lumps. We just had the sugar and I tapped it in there. And then now, okay, guys, don't forget, you still have to tell me about my half a teaspoon. I haven't forgotten.
Yep, no one is answering. Come on, guys.
And it's simple. Okay, if you need 50 cents, how many quarters do you need to equal 50 cents?
You can shoot me in your fingers if the camera's rolling.
Yeah, so then the recipe calls for a pinch of salt. Well, again, I did my really in-depth math to figure out how much really is a pinch of salt. And it's about 1/3 of a teaspoon. So that's when I go and then eventually I found one that says a pinch.
Oh.
Yeah, so how cool is that? And so now we have all the ingredients for the cake batter, which is the flour, baking powder, sugar, and salt. So we will whisk this together, have a little of this, and we will set this aside for now. So the next thing we will need to complete the cake batter is, I will put this to the side so we have some space. We will need 1/4 cup of whole milk, and we will need 1/4 teaspoon vanilla extract and 1 teaspoon of orange juice. So here is what I'm going to do. 1/4 cup milk. And so I am going to combine the wet ingredients. So you want to put this flat for accuracy. Can you guys see that?
We can. I love how you put it flat. That's a smart idea.
Yes, because if you were doing this, then you would not have the accuracy because it's not fully leveled. You need to put it flat. And again, we needed 1/4 cup. If we did not have 1/4 cup, how many tablespoons would we need to make 1/4 cup?
I know. The physics class knows.
Oh, come on. And then we need 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla extract. So here is what I am doing. In this bowl, I am combining all of the wet ingredients because I am going to now prepare my line to put the cake together. So we need 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla extract. So my question earlier when we spoke about the baking powder, if you didn't have 1/2 teaspoon, then you would use 2 1/4 teaspoons because 1/4 and 1/4 equals 1/2.
1/4 plus 1/4 is 2 quarters, 2/4, and 2/4 simplified is 1/2.
Yes.
You older kids knew that though.
Yes, and so this was 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And then we need 1 teaspoon of orange juice. So here is the thing. Let's say you don't have orange juice. And does that mean you cannot make the cake, but you have all of the other ingredients? But let's say you had apple juice or apple cider. Well, you can definitely use that because it will not affect the recipe. So I am out of orange juice. And because I love apple cider, I always have that in my fridge this time of the year. So I will replace orange juice with apple cider.
Well, that's good to know. So you don't always have to use what they're calling for in the recipe.
Exactly. Yes. And what if you are you cannot tolerate orange juice? So that's how you switch it out. However, you want whatever you choose, it needs to blend with the apples. So you want to choose a juice that's really going to when it mixes with the apples and the maple syrup, it does not give it a taste that doesn't taste like fall. For example, you don't want to put lemon juice.
Right. That's why I was kind of surprised they said orange juice, to be honest. I was like, huh, really? We're not going for apple juice?
Yes, I do put orange juice because when I make my apple pie, I put orange juice instead of lemon juice because the orange juice and apples, that has a really wonderful flavor, almost like pear-like when you put it together.
Good to know.
So now we have the wet ingredients with our dry ingredients when we are going to be ready to make our cake. I will set the wet ingredient to the side until I can bring it back together. So I have all of the ingredients measured for the cake batter. Now for our apple layer, we need a 1/2 cup of peeled chopped apples. And then we need 1/4 teaspoon all-purpose flour, 3 teaspoons maple syrup, a pinch of cinnamon, and a pinch of ground ginger. So this is how we will now put that together. So the recipe says we'll do the apples last. Let's do the dry ingredients. So we need 1/4 teaspoon all-purpose flour. So now let's go and find our 1/4 teaspoon. So I need to wipe this off. Okay. And again, this makes it a lot easier when you have all of your ingredients measured and lined up. 1/4 teaspoon, and it's fun to do with family members or friends. So we have 1/4 teaspoon flour. Then we need 3 teaspoons of maple syrup. So we will put that here. This is my teaspoon. And here is my maple syrup. Now, maple syrup, guys, is a natural sweetener, but did you know it also has calcium and iron? And that is very good for you in building your immune system. So, and even ginger and cinnamon, that's why I bake and cook with a lot of that, because those are important as well. Okay, so we have that. Put this to the side. And then we need, as they say, the pinch of cinnamon and ginger. Cinnamon is loaded with, we have fiber, calcium, and iron. And ginger is vitamin C and a lot of fiber and iron. And of course, they have 0 sugar. These are immune system boosters, especially with the cold season coming on. That's what you want to build up a lot on. So now we need a pinch of ginger and a pinch of cinnamon. And I am combining this because when we are ready to do our baking, we're all set to go. And now I'm creating some room here for my baking. Okay. All right, good. Next, we need our chopped apples. So here we go. The Gala apples are the best ones for this because they have a nice texture. It doesn't get mushy. It's soft, but it's not mushy when you cook it. So that's what I'm using today. And this small one equals a 1/2 cup. And I will show you how to peel the apple and not to be afraid. You can either use a knife. Now, little ones, you will need the adult supervision or to help you with this. Or you can have an apple peel, a vegetable peeler, which is easier as well. Kitchen tools, they're all easy to use, but you just have to know how to use them. So I will show you when you have the peeler, you're going to remove the stem and you hold your apple like this. Don't be afraid in the kitchen. That's the first thing, because if you start being afraid, you will become intimidated and things will start falling out of your hands. And that's how you end up getting cuts. So you hold it and then you could carefully go around and peel.
Oh, I can smell that apple through the computer right now.
Oh, and these were from the apple orchard in Hendersonville. I love going there every year. So we were up there and it's so beautiful and they're so sweet.
So you actually picked those apples is what I'm hearing you say?
Absolutely, from the
Cool.
tree. Yes.
Cool.
See, and I like to keep a little garbage bowl handy so I don't have to keep going back and forth. Now, let's say you didn't have the peeler and you wanted to peel an apple. No fear. So here's what I would normally do. I would cut it in half to make it easier. Then put it in a quarter. See, here we go again, fractions. Right?
Lots
There
of
we
fractions.
Lots of fractions. And then you can, this is called a paring knife. So when you're using a knife, you don't do this, okay? You do this. Your fingers are away from the blade. And then you carefully peel. So, and you can see the size, it's small. And a paring knife is to use for things like this, small apples, or when you're chopping peppers, because it's easy to maneuver than the bigger chef's knife. But that's how you can peel if you do not have the vegetable peeler, and keep your fingers away. See, that's it. So now we need to chop the apples because we need a half a cup. So we will, you notice how I'm keeping my fingers away from the knife and I'm curling it in? I'm not putting it out like this because I want to keep my fingers.
Those are important.
Yes, they are. So, and again, that's why when you are cooking, it's about, if you notice, I'm just keeping my hands away all of the time. So I'm not putting it there and close. And now I'm just going to carefully remove the stemmy part in there.
That's where the seeds are, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. All that
Sometimes you
purple
can
part.
find, yes, you could, if they, especially when they're larger apples, you would find some seeds in there. Now, listen, if you have there, if your apple has some of the skin left on it, that's fine. You're not going to get sick or anything. You're going to be okay. So, and then we want to chop the apples. So we're going to do this. Again, see, my hand is away. So this is what chopped apples look like. They're not finely minced or sliced.
And that trick with the curling of your fingers, I didn't learn that till I was an adult. And I was like, oh, that's really a good strategy to know. So for those of you that are interested in doing that, make sure you're watching, because, you know, it is very easy to definitely cut your finger. But if you're curling it back like that, you really have a lesser chance of doing that.
Yes, and it's how you learn. And kids, this is what happens when you practice in the kitchen. Practice makes perfect. So with more practice, that's how you become skillful. Because in the beginning, I didn't know all of this, but now I can do it with my eyes closed because I know what's going on. And as I said, I want my fingers, so. And then I can just, you don't have to put them all together, as you can see. Don't try to do what you see chefs do on those cooking shows. You don't need to be doing this.
Oh, when they do it real fast, yeah, I'm like, there's no way.
No,
thank you.
So go at your own pace, what makes you feel safe and comfortable. So, and so we have this. And now we will put this in here. So we have, you know, and it depends upon the size, the chopping. Now this is a very packed half a cup. Will it affect the recipe? No, it's okay because it's apples and it will shrink when we put it to cook. But you don't want to go more than this. All right, so we've got our apples. I will clear some things away. And now here comes the fun part. We're going to start cooking, or baking rather. Let me make some space. All right, so some tools that we need in this recipe would be, we need a fork, we need a spatula. We want to test our cake, so we need a cake tester or a toothpick. And I have a pastry brush because I'll show you a little trick with that. So we can now move all of this to the side. And the fun part is coming up. So we need space.
So yeah, boys and girls, if you are enjoying this this cooking thing, when you go to buy a house, kitchen counter space is very important.
Absolutely, yes. If you love to cook, but that was me when I buying houses. Even my first home, I made sure I told the realtor I love to cook, so I have to have a lot of my kitchen has to be the largest room. Oh yeah. Okay. So now, ladies and gentlemen, let us begin.
So all of that, what she just did, guys, was called prepping the food. She's just getting it all prepped and ready to go, prepared.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's right. So all of what we did, it boiled down to this, right? Look at that.
Beautiful.
See? So that's why I say when you take away all the prep work, now you're ready to put this together. And that's so nice. So here we go. And remember now, so the recipe says, oh, this is what you will need. Remember, it's a mug cake. So you want a big mug. I have this, and I have a plate. I'm going to put this here because we're putting it into the microwave. So if there are any spills, it will spill here. It wouldn't mess up the microwave. See, this is how we also work smartly. So we don't have a lot of cleaning up to do. We will need this, and we'll need a piece of paper towel because we will be melting the butter. So the recipe says we're going to start with putting the cake together. We need to melt 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter. So that's what I have in here. And so I will put that in this mug. So got that, 2 tablespoons. I will put this to cover it. I will turn my screen up a bit now because I'm going to the microwave.
Now, why did you put the paper towel on top of the mug?
Just to prevent splatters.
Oh.
Because, you know, butter has a tendency, when it starts cooking, it would splatter all over the place. So this will prevent it from messing up the microwave.
Makes sense.
Yes. So we will put this in here. We're baking the cake now. We're going to melt the butter for 30 seconds and then see if it's melted. If it needs a little 10 more seconds, we'll do that. Okay. Is everyone enjoying the class so far? I hope so.
I know I am. Making me so hungry. While we're waiting, we do have a few questions. One was back from Miss Usick's class. What is something difficult you've had to overcome on your journey as a chef?
Oh, well, let's see. Overcoming was having to find the customers. That was it, because I have the talent, but what I had to now do was, okay, where do I find the customers? And so marketing myself was my biggest challenge. I had to overcome that. And that was not my specialty. Marketing was not my specialty.
Makes sense.
But as far as implementing and creating my recipes, those were the easy part for me.
Nice, thanks.
You are welcome. So we need some mittens or pads, and let's check this and see. Okay, wonderful. So I'll show you a little trick. So you want to make sure you have the pot holders in case it's hot for you. Mine is not. So you want a very good microwave mug as well. So here is what I like to do, because this is where you get options. I have the pastry brush because I will take the melted butter and just swirl it around the mug, because when it's finished, if you feel like serving it in a plate and invert it, you can do that. You can just flip it upside down, like then you have an upside down mug cake if you didn't want to eat it in the mug. So that was the trick of it. So we are putting this so that the batter wouldn't stick. Now I have the melted butter. Here is what I'm going to do. I'm going to add the melted butter to our liquid, which was milk, maple syrup, and the apple cider. So here, I will leave this to the side because this is what we're doing now.
Can you put the screen down just a little bit more?
Thank you for showing me, reminding
Okay,
me.
thank you. Perfect. There we go.
Thank you, Miss Michelle.
You're
for
good.
reminding me. Yes. So to the same mug that we removed the butter and added to the milk and the maple syrup mixture, we will now add our chopped apples. So our 1/2 cup of chopped apples go into the mug. And remember, it's a mug cake, so everything is going to be going in here. And when we were prepping, do you remember we did our measurements? So this is why it's important, because now it makes putting the cake together so easy. You don't have to guess and measure again. You just pick up and go. You add this in here. Then the maple syrup, because we had it lined up, remember? So we know, oh, this is going in there now. You would stir this together. And you want to make sure, the reason why we're doing this is to make sure that there is no lumps of flour hanging out there. So we will put this now in the microwave and cook it for 45 seconds. So back to the microwave.
All right.
This is what we're doing. It's like a class. Who is this?
All right. So while we are waiting for that to cook, another question that we have from Miss Madden's class. What do you do when you're missing an ingredient? How do you decide what substitution to use?
It depends upon the recipe, because that's how let's say I didn't have buttermilk. I would take regular milk and some lemon juice and combine it and let it sit for a bit, and I have buttermilk.
Nice. Something that I do is I just look on Google. Like, for instance, if I'm missing something, I just put in what's the best substitute for this ingredient, and then it gives me options. A lot of times, like, it will ask for a certain type of vinegar, and I don't have those vinegars, and so I get what I have.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
So Google can help.
Yes, and a lot of times, let's say you didn't have apple cider vinegar, but it's just saying it needs apple cider vinegar. Then you have regular vinegar and you have some apple cider. You just add a little bit to it because it's just the flavor it's creating.
For sure. Yeah, that's great. Great to know.
So it's been 45 seconds. Oh, I wish you guys could smell this.
We can pretend.
So we're gonna give it a stir again. And now here is where we're gonna have the chemistry coming on. We had the baking powder in here, remember? And we had the milk in here. So we're now going to add this liquid and the melted butter to this. Stir it together. You don't want to over stir because it's like with any cake, and you would use a fork to gently mix it together. And can you see the reaction it's already having with the air bubbles? So yeah, that means we are going to have a very nice, light and fluffy cake. Look at that. See? And that's coming from the baking powder and the milk that created, like as I mentioned, that chemical reaction. So you don't want to overmix. I have a spatula here, and this is how simple the cake comes together. Ooh. So on top of the apples, you just take your mixture and you put it, you don't stir.
That's going to be the cake part. Mm.
This is the cake part. Yes, this is the cake part.
And I believe the reaction that's happening is making carbon dioxide bubbles, correct?
Yes, it is correct. That's right. You get a star, Miss Michelle.
Ah, thank you. Just for our older kids in the room right now.
Yes, that's right. That's right. For the older kids. Yes. So now we will uncover. Now we will put this into the microwave and we will let this cook for 90 minutes. Now,
90 minutes or 90 seconds?
I'm sorry, 90 seconds. There you go. Thank you.
Say 90 minutes. We're going to have some burnt cake.
That's exactly 90 seconds, 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Too funny.
So we're going to set that there now and let this cook.
Awesome. All
Guess
right.
what?
So one more question for you. What is the
Yeah.
biggest meal or item you've ever made?
What's the, I'm sorry, the what?
The biggest meal or item you have ever made?
Well, I always do a big spread for Thanksgiving. I cook my own turkey from scratch, brining and everything. So that's usually my biggest cooking, and Christmas, because I do cook a turkey and a duck at Christmas.
So everybody comes to your house for the holidays.
Well, yes, it used to be that way when I lived in New York and had the family, but now I'm here and all my relatives are in New York. So it's
Ah, bummer. So can we all come to your house? Oh, guys.
That's right. That's right.
That sounds
Absolutely.
awesome.
Oh,
Miss-
yes. Oh,
Miss
yes.
Salone's class would like to know, what's your favorite thing to bake?
My favorite thing to bake is I think like I said, I love to bake pies and muffins. Those are my favorite things to bake. And I would say my chocolate cake.
Yum.
Yes.
So do you like baking more than cooking?
It depends on the day. Because sometimes baking can be a lot of work. It depends on what I am baking. And then I'll go, oh man, why did I set out to do all of this? But I'll tell you, once I start it, I enjoy it. Because for example, I know, okay, I'll be doing something that relates to baking today, even though it's not in the oven, it's in the microwave. So after this session, I will just make me some cinnamon apple muffins. So my brain has picked up on the positiveness of the baking, and that's the good thing. Yes.
So real quick, what's the difference between baking and cooking?
Well, baking, we go into the oven and it's the precision. We use different ingredients, and cooking is more like the food where we are preparing on the stove. And sometimes we could finish it up in the oven, but baking takes on more of the savory, sweet, pastry type of flavors.
Makes sense. So more of the desserts, and cooking is more of like the meal, the actual dinner.
Yes, and like, that's why if we say we're making a chicken, and if we say we're baking the chicken, that means it's going into the oven. Or roasting, we're going into the oven.
Got you. All right, let's see it. Is it done?
Yes, so I will bring it out and see what's going on.
Anyone out there, can you smell the apples?
Oh, you can smell the apples.
Oh, look what happened.
Exactly. And this is what will happen if you have a bigger mug, but that's why we would put this should it spill over. Now, this is how we will test it to make sure it's cooked. With the cake tester, we will insert it. If any of the batter comes sticking here, it means we need to cook it some more. So let's go. Oh, this is finished. I can tell.
It came out clean.
Came out clean. Nothing is sticking. No raw dough is sticking. So it's complete. It's finished. So now you have choices. You can either serve this with ice cream, or you can put a sprinkle of what we use, which was the ginger and the cinnamon, and a drizzle of maple syrup. And you would eat it directly from the mug. Of course, it's very hot. Or I had one that I made earlier. So let's see, when I was talking about how we can take it out if we like. if we do not want to eat it in the mug. So see, I had made this one earlier and it's cool. So you would take a plate and you put it this way. And, oh,
Come on out.
it's
There it is. Oh,
and so there you would have it. And isn't this gorgeous?
it is. That looks so good.
And I like to take it out, but if you're sitting in the watching a movie or something, then you could just scoop it out of there and eat it. So that's how you would do it. And then you could take a dash of ginger because this is what you used in there. See? And a little bit of cinnamon. And you make it look pretty.
Oh, look at that. You're decorating a little more. I see.
Now
Decorating.
we're- Exactly. And then you can put a drizzle of maple syrup. So we are actually using the same ingredients that we used in the recipe and we made it pretty. So
Oh.
now you guys can make this for Thanksgiving.
Oh, that is fantastic. Okay, we have to know, how does it taste?
All right. So taste tester. I mean, I was waiting to taste this for the longest. Where did I put my spoon? Oh, here it is. Ah, here goes.
Let's see who thinks it's going to be good. Anybody out there going to think it's good? I think it's going to be good too.
I am going with a big bite, guys, because I love to eat.
Let's see.
Mm.
Yeah. Ooh,
The apples have the nice texture. Oh, the flavors of the ginger and cinnamon, and it's the right amount of sweetness. I wish I had one each for all of you.
oh, I think they do too. I know I do.
Who's gonna try this at home?
Ooh, hands. Are you going to try this at home? What do you think?
At home. Oh, great.
Good. Well, your teachers have the recipe, so if they haven't given it to you yet, definitely ask them for it. And if you need the recipe again, just email me and I will gladly get that to you again.
Yes, we will. We will do that.
Fantastic. Fantastic. This was so fun. Thank you for basically doing all of this for us today.
It's my
I
pleasure.
really enjoyed it.
Oh, I'm glad you did. And I enjoyed spending time with every one of you. So thank you as well for staying with me and talking through fractions and baking.
Absolutely. It's an important thing to know for sure. So
And I want to see some young chefs. So
yes. Start off young, guys. You got
start
it.
off young and yes, find a way and keep in touch with me. And we will have a whole group of young chefs.
That sounds awesome. Thank you so much, Chef Lady Wren.
You're welcome. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Take care. Thanks for sticking
Bye.
around. Bye.
Bye.